Thanks very much, everyone, and thanks for staying around to listen. So yeah, I'm Charles Devenish, Managing Director of Adexon Fire and Smoke Curtains. Good to see you all here today. We design and manufacture active and static fire and smoke curtains. Just a quick show of hands, who is familiar with fire curtains? Who's worked on projects? Oh wow, okay, that's excellent, very good. So you probably all know more than this already, but I like to describe an active fire curtain as this is a bit sort of simplified probably, but as a modern form of a roller shutter. So probably all very familiar with roller shutters, but essentially we're using a fire-resistant textile fabric instead of the old metal curtain. But the guides and barrel, etc., are very similar. And the benefits of a fire curtain, active fire curtain, are that they're lighter weight, essentially, and more compact. So going into your project, they take up less space. If you want to conceal them in a ceiling void, they require less reinforcement and secondary steelwork for weight load bearing. And then there's also, we'll touch on this a little bit more, but there's a lot more uses of them, because with fire curtains we can have horizontal designs as well as the standard verticals. We can achieve a lot more different classifications, E, EI and EW, and we can also do concertina, or some people know them as accordion, so there's no guide rails needed at all. We've got some of those going in at the new Liverpool Football Club at the moment. So there's just before I run through our quick presentation, there's 3 takeaways I wanted to everyone to really pick up in terms of value from our brief talk. I've posted these on LinkedIn, so you don't need to write them down or make a mental note. You can just pop onto my profile if you want and have a little look at the post. But the first point is that fire curtains are really good products for retrofit projects. If you're looking to create open plan, if you're wanting to remove, a wall, if you're wanting flexibility with your design, but you still need to have compartmentation in the event of a fire, fire curtains are, active fire curtains are really brilliant products for helping you achieve that. So you can still have compartmentation in the event of a fire. So on the fire alarm, the fire curtain will deploy and block off the areas or provide a safe escape route. The second point, takeaway, was a little phrase we've coined is "don't be sold the old." Basically, traditional designs of fire curtains do actually have problems with them, and some people maybe use fire curtains as a choice of last resort. But some 5 years ago, we realised that if fire curtains were to see their potential growth, we need to solve these headaches, and we came up with a design. We'll show you this shortly. It's all tested and third-party certified and well proven now, but it's new in the, all things being relative, it's still new. And then the last takeaway was don't chance it. And you might say, well, what does that mean? Well, there's essentially is all vertical fire curtains must be CE-marked to legal requirement under the construction product regulations. If there's a harmonised standard that covers a product, you do have to legally CE-mark to that harmonised standard. You can't just CE-mark to the machinery directive as a way around it. You actually have to CE-mark to harmonised standard. And in our space, fire curtains, a harmonised standard, or a standard became harmonised in November 2019, making it a legal requirement. The adoption of that hasn't been 100% in this country for a number of reasons, but we just say just don't chance it. There's not a lot of upsides to taking the risk of not using a CE-marked product, and there's obviously a lot of downsides. And the other aspect of don't chance it is we're big advocates of third-party certification. So basically, third-party certification is your best way of reducing your risk of a product that arrives on site being the same as the product that was tested. So we all know, as a manufacturer, we can send a Rolls-Royce, to use an analogy, to the test house to get tested, but then what are we producing week in, week out? Well, third-party certification, valid third-party certification is your best way of guaranteeing, you might say, that the product that arrives on site, the product that we're making week in, week out as a manufacturer, is the same as what we actually sent to the test house all those months or years ago. So there are 3 takeaways. Fire curtains are very good products for your retrofit projects. Don't be sold the old, and don't chance it. So a little bit about us. We have a fairly open-minded and outreach sort of approach. We're actually seeking to foster industry-wide innovation. and improve performance reliability. So, for example, our design, we haven't like patented it or protected it. We think all fire curtain manufacturers should copy it, follow suit, no charge, no cost. Everyone benefits. We'll show you that design shortly. And we really, got a UK sort of approach. We saw some figures come out last week, didn't we? The UK's risen to 8th in the world as a manufacturer. And, we sort of view our part in making, putting the UK on the map and helping to climb those rankings rather than having a sort of a parochial, narrow view. This is our charter. This is what guides us day to day. So we say there's a hierarchy of considerations when you're buying. It's the same when you're specifying. But the first thing that you need to consider is the product legally compliant. You might say, well, of course. But the reality on the ground is there are products out there. We're well aware of products out there in our space that aren't legally compliant, even today being sold. We guarantee all ours are. Certified, we say, is a second consideration when you're looking at specifying and buying. And we say make sure that the product has valid third-party certification from a notified body. And then the third consideration we'd say is look at the pros and cons of the product. Might be the first thing you go to, but we'd actually say just make sure the other two fundamentals or basics are in place before you do that. So why fire curtains? Already sort of touched on this really, but you can see there 3 different configurations. So you got the horizontal top left, the vertical one, which you'd be very familiar with, and then the circular on the bottom is a concertina, what we call a concertina, or some people call accordion. But you don't need any guide rails. So when it's at a site in the roof, there's nothing in the way. As I say, current case study is LFC, where they've got a couple of these, or maybe more than a couple, but around some survey areas. They don't want any guide rails because of traffic people. So they're entirely out of sight until they're needed, hopefully never. Some benefits. I mentioned the lightweight, compact design of fire curtains. Gives you that flexibility with open plan space. And the flexibility with designing. I mentioned the old design, and we use this ourselves up to 5 years ago. So you can see in the middle there is that's a section through the side guide on a fire curtain. So the way we all traditionally have retained the fabric is by using either a popper or a nut and a bolt, which basically just stops the fabric coming out of the guide. So in a fire where there's a pressure differential created by the fire, is the fabric will be held in place. The trouble with the nut and bolt popper is it can drag into the aperture and jam. It also can cause tears and rips. So we came up with this guide design some years back where we have a continuous steel pole in the guide rail, fabric's looped around it, gives you seamless travel, continuous retainment, and you don't get any issues with the jamming, snagging. We also use fire-resistant fabric for the smoke sealing. I'm conscious time's short, so just point you to a REBA CPD. If anyone wants to learn more about fire curtains, we've got a REBA accredited CPD, just running over the applications and the design characteristics, etc. of those. A couple more QR codes you can scan there. But as I say, feel free to reach out to us. And just one last touch I just say is before you'll go, call past our stand and take a notepad and a pen and even a brochure, because they're a bit heavy to take home and it'll reduce our carbon footprint. Thanks very much.